The sulphurous rain fell in thick drops across the sprawling metal shanties of Sector 7, each droplet hissing as it struck the corroded aluminum sheeting that served as roofs for the desperate. Maya-chan clutched her small wooden box closer to her chest, the ancient earth matches inside rattling softly as she navigated the narrow alleys between makeshift homes. The acrid smell of burning fuel cells mixed with the stench of unwashed bodies and alien waste, creating a cocktail of despair that hung heavy in the recycled air. At 12 years old, Maya had already learned that survival on Station Kepler 442b meant adapting to circumstances that would break most adults. Her parents had died 3 years ago when their transport crashed during a routine supply run to the outer mining colonies. The station's welfare system, designed primarily for the dominant Zephyrian population, had little provision for human orphans. Maya fell through the cracks, ending up in the slums where the forgotten gathered like debris in a cosmic gutter. The matches were her lifeline. Real earth matches made from actual wood and phosphorus, not the synthetic substitutes that dominated galactic commerce. She had inherited the box from her grandmother, who had smuggled them aboard during the great human exodus from Earth 50 years prior. To most beings in the galaxy, fire was a tool produced by technology. But to creatures who had evolved in cold, methane-rich environments, the simple magic of striking a match and producing flame held an almost mystical fascination. Matches. Real Earth matches. Maya called out in broken galactic standard, her voice barely audible over the constant hum of atmospheric processors. She stood at the corner of Sublevel C, where the main thoroughfare split into 3 smaller passages. This intersection saw the most foot traffic, though foot was a relative term given the variety of appendages that carried beings through these tunnels. A group of crystalline traders clicked past, their translucent bodies catching the dull light from overhead strips. They communicated in harmonic frequencies that made Maya's teeth ache, discussing prices for rare minerals and mathematical equations that hurt her head to overhear. They never bought matches. Crystallines absorbed energy directly from electromagnetic sources and found organic combustion primitive. Maya had learned to read the body language of dozens of species during her time in the slums. The Zephyrians, with their tall, gray forms and large black eyes, moved with calculated precision. Their advanced technology made them the dominant force in this sector of the galaxy, and they treated other species with polite condescension. The hive minds traveled in groups, sharing thoughts through bioelectric fields, making them excellent customers since one purchase often meant selling to an entire collective consciousness. But it was the outcasts that Maya understood best. The broken mechanicals with rusted joints and failing power cores. The exiled psychics whose mental abilities had been stripped by neural dampeners. The hybrid offspring of interspecies relationships that left them belonging nowhere. They recognized something in Maya that resonated with their own displacement, and they sometimes bought matches not for practical use, but for the comfort of possessing something purely, authentically alien. How much for the box? The voice came from behind her, speaking perfect Earth English with an accent Maya couldn't place. She turned to see a figure in a hooded cloak, the fabric shimmering with embedded technology that bent light around its edges. Only the being's hands were visible, pale, and delicate with 6 fingers instead of 5. Maya had learned to be cautious around anyone who could afford adaptive camouflage clothing in the slums. The whole box isn't for sale, Maya replied carefully. Individual matches are 2 credits each. I see. The figure reached into a fold of the cloak and produced a small device that projected a holographic display. Maya glimpsed star charts, shipping manifests, and what looked like biological scan data before the display snapped shut. These matches are quite remarkable. Pre-digital combustion technology. Very rare. Maya nodded, unsure where this conversation was heading. Most customers either bought matches or moved on. Extended discussions usually meant trouble. My name is Kasura, the figure continued, lowering her hood to reveal features that were almost human, but subtly wrong. Her skin had a slight luminescence, and her eyes were too large, too knowing. I represent certain interests that value authentic Earth artifacts. I'm not selling the whole box, Maya repeated firmly. The matches were her only reliable source of income. Without them, she would be reduced to scavenging through refuse bins or worse. Kasara smiled, revealing teeth that were perfectly white and slightly pointed. I'm not trying to purchase your inventory, child. I'm offering you employment. The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Employment was a concept that existed primarily in theory for slum dwellers. The major corporations that control trade routes and mining operations hired through automated systems that screen for genetic markers, educational credentials, and psychological profiles that excluded anyone from the lower sectors by design. What kind of employment? Maya asked suspiciously. Cultural consultation, Kasara replied smoothly. There is significant interest in human artifacts and customs among certain circles. Your knowledge of Earth traditions, combined with your authentic materials, could be quite valuable to the right clients. Maya had heard stories of children disappearing after accepting offers that seemed too good to be true. The galaxy was vast, and humans were considered exotic enough that unscrupulous beings sometimes collected them for private menageries or worse. But Maya had also learned that opportunity was rare in the slums, and those who dismissed every chance for advancement often ended up dying in the same alleys where they were born. I need details, she said finally. Kasara nodded approvingly. Smart. Never accept an offer without understanding the terms. She gestured toward the upper levels of the station. I have quarters in Residential District 3. Clean water, reliable power, proper food preparation facilities. You would have your own space while serving as a cultural advisor for my organization. What organization? We facilitate cultural exchanges between species. Think of us as cosmic anthropologists. Your role would be to demonstrate human customs, explain the significance of Earth artifacts, and help other beings understand your species' unique perspectives. It sounded almost too legitimate to be suspicious, which made Maya even more wary. And the matches would remain yours naturally. In fact, we would provide you with additional authentic Earth materials to supplement your demonstrations. Books, music recordings, food items, decorative objects. A complete cultural library. Maya felt something twist in her chest at the mention of books. She hadn't held a real book since her parents died. The station's information systems were digital, accessed through neural interfaces that required expensive implants most humans couldn't afford. Maya had taught herself to read using scraps of packaging material and maintenance manuals scavenged from repair stations. I need time to think about it, she said. Of course. Kasara reached into her cloak again and produced a small communication device. This will contact me directly when you've made your decision. But Maya, she paused, and Maya realized she had never mentioned her name. Don't take too long. Opportunities like this are rare, and the position may not remain available indefinitely. Kasara pulled her hood back up and melted into the crowd with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to moving unseen. Maya stared at the communication device in her hand, its surface warm and slightly vibrating with internal power. The technology was far beyond anything she had ever owned. She spent the rest of the day trying to sell matches, but her mind kept drifting to Kasara's offer. The possibility of clean water alone was enough to make her seriously consider it. Maya had been drinking recycled atmospheric condensation for 3 years, and the metallic taste never left her mouth. Real food, prepared in actual cooking facilities instead of heated over jury-rigged thermal coils, seemed like an impossible luxury. But it was the mention of books that truly tempted her. Maya had always been curious about the world beyond the station. Her parents had told her stories about Earth, about blue skies and oceans, about seasons that changed the color of leaves and snow that fell like clean, white silence. They had promised to take her there someday, to show her the planet where humanity had been born. That dream had died with them, but the hunger for knowledge remained. As the station's artificial evening cycle began, the overhead lights dimmed to simulate sunset. Maya made her way back to her shelter, a space barely large enough for a sleeping mat wedged between two waste recycling units. The constant hum of the processors provided a kind of mechanical lullaby that helped her sleep, but tonight the sound felt oppressive. She pulled out one of her remaining matches and struck it against the rough wall. The flame danced in the darkness, casting shadows that seemed to move with their own purpose. In the brief moment before the match burned down to her fingers, Maya made her decision. The communication device activated with a soft chime when she pressed its surface. "I accept your offer," she said into the device. Kasara's voice emerged from the speaker with crystalline clarity. "Excellent. Pack whatever belongings you have. Someone will collect you within the hour." Maya looked around her tiny shelter. Everything she owned could fit in a single bag. 3 changes of clothes, a water purification tablet she had been saving for emergencies, a small toolkit inherited from her father, and the box of matches. It took her less than 5 minutes to prepare for the most significant change in her young life. The person who came to collect her was not Kasara, but a mechanical being whose body had been extensively modified with bioorganic components. Half of its face was synthetic, glowing with internal diagnostics, while the other half appeared to be living tissue that pulsed with its own rhythm. It moved with surprising grace for something that looked like a hybrid between a robot and a medical experiment. "I am Unit Thane," it said in a voice that sounded like music played through damaged speakers. "I will escort you to your new quarters." They traveled through parts of the station Maya had never seen before. Emergency lift tubes that required special access codes. Maintenance corridors that bypassed the main thoroughfares. Service elevators that climbed far higher than Maya had realized the station extended. As they rose, the air became cleaner, the lighting brighter, and the walls showed less evidence of the decay that plagued the lower levels. Maya pressed her face to the transparent aluminum viewing ports they passed, watching the slums shrink below them. From this height, the chaotic maze of Sector 7 looked almost geometric, like a circuit board designed by someone who had never seen an actual circuit board. The randomness resolved into patterns, and Maya began to understand that even the apparent chaos of the slums followed certain rules. "The station is larger than most inhabitants realize," Unit Thane observed, noticing her fascination with the view. "What appears to be the complete structure from any single viewpoint represents only a fraction of the total construction. How big is it really?" Current estimates suggest a population of approximately 14 million beings across 47 distinct levels and sublevel complexes. The original architects designed it to be modular, allowing for continuous expansion as trade routes developed. Maya tried to process those numbers. She had lived her entire life in the slums, assuming that Sector 7 represented a significant portion of the station's total population. Learning that it was essentially a tiny neighborhood in a vast city made her feel simultaneously smaller and more amazed by the scope of galactic civilization. The elevator eventually stopped at a level marked Residential District 3'. The doors opened onto a corridor that looked like something from Maya's dreams of Earth. The walls were covered in what appeared to be actual wood paneling, warm and rich in color. Soft lighting created pools of gentle illumination rather than the harsh glare of utility fixtures. The air smelled of growing things, though Maya couldn't identify any specific scents. Unit Thane led her to a door marked with symbols she didn't recognize. The door recognized some signal from her escort and slid open silently, revealing living quarters that seemed impossibly luxurious after 3 years in the slums. The main room contained furniture designed for human proportions, chairs that supported her body correctly, a table at the proper height, windows that showed a view of space rather than the industrial machinery she was accustomed to seeing. Through the transparent walls, Maya could see other ships passing in the distance, their running lights tracing paths between the stars like slow meteors. "Your quarters," Unit Thane announced. The food preparation area contains both standard nutrient synthesizers and facilities for preparing organic materials using traditional methods. The learning alcove has been equipped with a selection of Earth cultural materials. Kasara will brief you on your duties tomorrow after you have had time to acclimate. Maya walked through the space in a daze, touching surfaces to confirm they were real. The sleeping area contained an actual bed with soft coverings instead of the thin mat she had been using. The hygiene facilities included a water shower that produced clean, heated water on demand. The food preparation area had equipment she didn't recognize, but that somehow looked familiar, as if it had been designed to resemble kitchens from Earth that she had only heard described. But it was the learning alcove that truly captured her attention. Shelves lined the walls, filled with what appeared to be actual books. Not digital displays or holographic projections, but physical objects with pages made from plant fiber covered in symbols that resolved into words as she focused on them. Maya pulled one volume from the shelf at random and opened it carefully, afraid it might disintegrate in her hands. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, she read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. The book felt solid and real in her hands, its pages yellowed with age but intact. Maya had heard of Christmas from her parents' stories, though she had never experienced it herself. Something about gift-giving and family gatherings and hope for the future. As she carefully turned the pages, reading about a man named Scrooge who learned to care about others, Maya began to understand that she had stumbled into something much more significant than simple employment. Unit Thane had departed while she explored, leaving her alone with luxuries she had never imagined possessing. Maya sat in one of the human-proportioned chairs, holding the book in her lap, and tried to process the dramatic change in her circumstances. Less than 6 hours ago, she had been selling matches in the slums, wondering if she would earn enough credits to buy food. Now she sat in quarters that probably cost more per day than she had earned in the past year. The rational part of her mind insisted that situations this fortunate didn't happen to slum children without hidden costs. But as Maya looked around at the clean walls, the soft lighting, and the shelves full of books, she found it difficult to maintain her suspicion. Even if this opportunity came with strings attached, it represented access to knowledge and comfort that she had thought permanently beyond her reach. She opened the book again and began to read about spirits that visited people on Christmas Eve, showing them visions of past, present, and future. As artificial night fell beyond the transparent walls, and the lights of distant ships traced paths through the darkness, Maya wondered what spirits might visit her in this strange new life, and what visions they might reveal about her own past, present, and future. The matches sat in their wooden box on the table beside her, a tangible link to her previous existence, and a reminder that some transformations happened one small flame at a time. Maya awoke to the sound of gentle chimes instead of the mechanical grinding of waste processors. For a moment, disorientation clouded her thoughts as she tried to reconcile the soft surface beneath her with her memories of sleeping on recycled padding. Then, reality reasserted itself, and she remembered the previous day's extraordinary transformation. She was no longer in the slums. She had quarters in Residential District 3 Prime, employment with mysterious but apparently legitimate cultural consultants, and access to more books than she had seen in her entire life. The hygiene facilities proved even more remarkable in daylight than they had the previous evening. Maya had not experienced truly clean water in 3 years, and the sensation of washing without the metallic aftertaste of recycled condensation felt almost decadent. The clothing fabrication unit had produced garments designed specifically for human physiology, soft materials that regulated temperature, and provided freedom of movement without the constant adjustments required by generic station wear. A soft knock at her door interrupted her exploration of the food preparation facilities. Maya opened it to find Unit Thane waiting in the corridor, its biomechanical features arranged in what might have been a pleasant expression. "Good morning, Maya, Chun," it said in its musical mechanical voice. "Kasara requests your presence for orientation. Have you consumed nutrients?" Maya realized she had been so fascinated by the equipment in the food preparation area that she had forgotten to actually prepare anything to eat. Not yet. The orientation includes a meal, Unit Thane replied. Please bring your Earth artifacts. Today you begin your cultural consultation duties. Maya gathered the wooden box of matches and followed Unit Thane through corridors she had not seen the previous evening. This section of the station seemed designed with aesthetics in mind, rather than pure functionality. Decorative elements from dozens of different species created an eclectic but harmonious environment. Crystalline sculptures caught and refracted light from Zephyrian geometric displays. Hive-mind bioart pulsed with collective emotional frequencies. Mechanical precision instruments created mathematical music that somehow complemented organic wind chimes. They entered a large room dominated by a circular table that could accommodate beings of various sizes and physiological requirements. Kasara sat at one position, her hood lowered to reveal her almost human features in better light. Maya could see now that her skin had a subtle prismatic quality, shifting slightly in color as she moved. Her two large eyes tracked Maya's entrance with calculating intelligence. "Welcome to your new life," Kasara said, gesturing to a chair clearly designed for human proportions. "Please sit and eat while we discuss your role here." The table's surface contained preparation areas that had produced what appeared to be actual food rather than synthesized nutrients. Maya recognized eggs, though she wasn't certain they came from Earth chickens. Bread that looked handmade rather than extruded. Fruit that retained the irregular shapes and varied colors of natural growing processes. The mere sight of food that hadn't been processed through industrial systems made Maya's mouth water. "This is real," she said, more statement than question. "Quite real," Kasara confirmed. "We believe that authentic cultural experiences require authentic materials. You cannot truly understand human customs by consuming synthetic approximations of human food." Maya began eating carefully, savoring flavors she had almost forgotten existed. The eggs tasted like eggs, not protein paste flavored to suggest poultry. The bread had texture and substance, requiring actual chewing rather than dissolving immediately on contact with saliva. As she ate, Kasara began explaining the nature of Maya's employment. "Our organization facilitates cultural exchange programs for individuals interested in learning about species other than their own," Kasara began. "Most galactic education focuses on practical concerns, trade languages, diplomatic protocols, technological integration standards. Very little attention is paid to the deeper aspects of what makes different species unique." "What kind of deeper aspects?" Maya asked between bites. "Traditions, customs, the stories that define how a species understands its place in the universe." Kasara gestured to the wooden box containing Maya's matches. "Take those, for example. To most beings, fire is a tool for heating materials or providing light. But humans have invested fire with symbolic meaning. Warmth is comfort, light is hope. The act of creating flame as a connection to your species' pre-technological past." Maya had never thought about her matches in those terms, but she recognized the truth in Kasara's observation. Striking a match did provide a sense of connection to something fundamental about being human. The small ritual of creating light from simple materials felt significant in ways that activating electronic illumination never did. "Your role will be to demonstrate these deeper meanings to clients who wish to understand human culture beyond its commercial or diplomatic applications," Kasara continued. "You'll show them how humans prepare food, explain the significance of human holidays and ceremonies, share stories that illustrate human values and perspectives." "What clients?" Maya asked. "Scholars, artists, philosophers. Beings who recognize that true understanding requires experiencing other cultures from the inside rather than simply observing them from a distance." Kasara paused to manipulate a control interface, and holographic displays appeared above the table showing various alien beings in academic or artistic settings. "You'll work primarily with individuals, occasionally with small groups. Think of yourself as a living library of human culture. The concept appealed to Maya more than she had expected. Her parents had always emphasized the importance of preserving human traditions in a galaxy where their species represented a tiny minority. But Maya had never imagined she might play a role in sharing those traditions with other beings who sought to understand them. "When do I start?" she asked. "Today," Kasara replied with a smile that showed her pointed teeth. "Your first client is arriving this afternoon. Her name is Veltar, and she's a composer who creates musical experiences based on the emotional patterns of different species. She's particularly interested in human music associated with seasonal celebrations." Maya felt a flutter of nervousness. "I don't know very much about music. My parents shared some songs with me, but I'm not trained or anything." "You don't need formal training," Kasara assured her. "Veltar isn't looking for technical expertise. She wants to understand how music functions in human culture, what emotions it evokes, how it connects to other aspects of human experience. Your authentic perspective as a human who has lived with these traditions is exactly what she needs." After breakfast, Kasara led Maya on a tour of the facilities where she would be working. The cultural consultation area occupied an entire floor of the residential district, with rooms designed to accommodate the environmental needs of various species while maintaining the intimate atmosphere necessary for genuine cultural exchange. The Human Culture Room had been designed to evoke domestic spaces from Earth, based on historical records and archaeological data. Furniture made from actual wood, though Maya suspected it had been grown rather than harvested from natural forests. Lighting that simulated the warm, variable illumination of fire rather than the steady output of technological systems. Decorative objects that appeared to be authentic Earth artifacts. Pottery, textiles, metal implements, books. "How did you obtain all of this?" Maya asked, running her fingers along the wooden surface of a table that looked handcrafted. "Our organization has extensive connections throughout the galaxy," Kasara replied diplomatically. "We specialize in locating and preserving cultural materials that might otherwise be lost. Consider us cosmic curators." Maya suspected there was more to the story, but she was learning to recognize when Kasara considered a topic closed to further discussion. The important thing was that someone had gone to considerable effort to create an environment where human culture could be shared authentically with other beings. The preparation room contained materials Maya had only read about in her parents' stories. Actual spices from Earth, preserved in stasis fields that maintained their potency across decades of interstellar travel. Musical instruments that looked like photographs she had seen in digital archives. Games and toys that human children had played with for centuries. The collection represented a treasure trove of authentic human culture that Maya had never expected to encounter. "This is incredible," she whispered, picking up what appeared to be a hand-carved wooden flute. "How long have you been collecting these things?" "Many years," Kasara said. "Cultural preservation has been a priority for our organization since its founding. We recognized early that the rapid pace of galactic integration posed risks to the unique traditions of smaller species. Without deliberate effort to maintain and share these traditions, they could disappear entirely within a few generations." Maya understood the concern. Even in her short life, she had seen how human customs adapted or disappeared entirely when transplanted to environments designed for other species. The artificial atmosphere of space stations didn't support many Earth plants, so traditional human agriculture became impossible. The constant artificial lighting eliminated natural cycles that had shaped human sleep patterns and seasonal celebrations for millennia. Without conscious effort to maintain connections to Earth traditions, humans risked becoming indistinguishable from any other technologically advanced species. "Veltar will arrive at 1400 hours, Kasara said, checking a chronometer. "I suggest you spend the intervening time familiarizing yourself with the musical materials in the preparation room. Don't try to become an expert. Simply explore what's available and think about how these items might relate to your own experiences with human culture." Maya spent the morning discovering instruments she had only heard described. A guitar with strings that vibrated when touched, producing sounds that seemed to resonate with something fundamental in her chest. A piano keyboard that created complex harmonies when multiple keys were pressed simultaneously. Simple percussion instruments that turn out to be surprisingly expressive when struck with different degrees of force and in various rhythmic patterns. But it was a small music box that truly captured her attention. When wound with a tiny key, it played a melody that Maya recognized from her childhood. Her mother had hummed the same tune while preparing meals or mending clothes. The simple mechanical device produced pure, clear notes that seemed to contain entire worlds of memory and emotion. Maya was still experimenting with the music box when Unit Thane arrived to announce Veltar's arrival. Maya followed it to the cultural consultation room, her nervousness returning as she anticipated meeting her first client. Veltar proved to be unlike any being Maya had previously encountered. Her body appeared to be composed primarily of flowing, semi-liquid material that maintained a roughly humanoid shape while constantly shifting in subtle ways. Colors moved across her surface like emotions made visible, currently displaying patterns of blue and silver that Maya somehow understood indicated curiosity and anticipation. "You are the human cultural consultant," Veltar said in a voice that sounded like multiple tones harmonizing. "I am honored to learn from you." The formal courtesy surprised Maya, who had grown accustomed to being dismissed or ignored by most beings in the station. "I'm honored to share what I can," she replied, following Veltar's example. They settled into chairs designed to accommodate Veltar's fluid physiology and Maya's more rigid structure. Veltar's coloration shifted to warmer hues as she began explaining her interest in human music. "My species experiences emotion as harmonic frequencies," Veltar said. "We create art by translating emotional experiences into musical compositions that others can share. But each species processes emotion differently, so music that moves one type of being may have no effect on another." Maya nodded, thinking of how the simple melody from the music box had evoked such powerful memories. Human music is definitely connected to emotions, but I'm not sure I understand how it works. "That is exactly what I hope to learn," Veltar replied, her colors brightening. "Not the technical aspects, but the experiential ones. How does music make you feel? What memories does it evoke? How do humans use music to share emotions with each other?" Maya thought about her mother's humming, the way simple melodies had made their cramped transport quarters feel more like home. "Music helps us remember," she said slowly, "and it helps us feel connected to other people, even when they're not around anymore." Veltar's colors deepened with interest. "Can you demonstrate this?" Maya retrieved the music box and wound the key, letting the familiar melody fill the room. As the notes played, she found herself talking about her mother, about the way human lullabies helped children feel safe, about how certain songs became associated with specific people or events in ways that made them irreplaceable. "The melody itself isn't particularly complex," Maya explained as the music box wound down, "but it carries all these other meanings. When I hear it, I don't just hear notes. I hear my mother's voice. I remember feeling loved and protected." Veltar's surface shimmered with patterns Maya couldn't interpret. "Among my people, we would say this music contains harmonic memories. The sound waves carry emotional frequencies that resonate with your personal experiences." Maya wound the music box again, listening more carefully this time. "Is that what you're trying to do with your compositions? Create music that carries emotional frequencies?" "Yes, but each species processes these frequencies differently," Veltar replied. "What creates joy for a crystalline being might produce fear in a hive mind. I'm trying to understand how humans specifically respond to different musical elements." They spent the next several hours exploring various instruments and musical styles. Maya demonstrated how humans used different types of music for different purposes: lively rhythms for celebration, gentle melodies for comfort, complex harmonies for contemplation. Veltar absorbed each example with intense focus, her coloration shifting to reflect the emotions the music evoked in Maya. Human music seems particularly focused on memory and connection, Veltar observed as their session concluded. Other species tend to use music more for immediate emotional manipulation or communication of specific information. But humans appear to embed entire personal histories in their musical experiences. Maya hadn't thought about it in those terms, but Veltar's observation felt accurate. Human music did seem to be as much about preservation as expression, a way of maintaining connections across time and distance that physical separation couldn't entirely sever. Would it be possible to attend one of your cultural celebrations? Veltar asked. I understand humans have seasonal festivals that incorporate music as a central element. Maya felt a pang of loss. I've never actually experienced a real human celebration. My parents described them to me, but we never had the resources or community to organize anything like that. Veltar's colors shifted to what Maya was learning to recognize as concern. I apologize. I did not mean to evoke painful memories. It's not painful, exactly, Maya said thoughtfully. More like incomplete. I know about these traditions, but I've never lived them. Perhaps, Veltar suggested gently. That could be arranged. After Veltar departed, Maya remained in the cultural consultation room, thinking about the day's conversations. She had begun her first day of work expecting to simply demonstrate human artifacts and answer questions about human customs. Instead, she had found herself exploring aspects of human culture that she had never fully understood herself. Kasara appeared as Maya was returning the musical instruments to their storage locations. How did your first consultation proceed? Better than I expected, Maya replied honestly. Veltar asked questions I'd never thought about before. It made me realize how much I don't know about my own culture. An excellent beginning, Kasara said approvingly. True cultural exchange requires participants to examine their own assumptions and discover new perspectives on familiar experiences. Your authentic uncertainty is as valuable as your authentic knowledge. Maya considered this as she prepared to return to her quarters. Her role was not to be an expert on human culture, but to be a genuine human willing to explore what that meant. The distinction seemed subtle but important. That evening, Maya sat by the window in her quarters, watching the lights of passing ships trace paths through the darkness. The wooden box of matches sat on the table beside her, but she found herself thinking less about the individual flames they could create and more about the larger illumination they represented. Each match was a small light that could kindle larger fires, just as each cultural exchange might spark broader understanding between species. She opened one of the books from her collection and began reading about Christmas traditions on Earth. As she read descriptions of gift-giving, family gatherings, and celebrations of hope during the darkest time of year, Maya began to understand what Veltar had meant about arranging a real human celebration. Perhaps it was time to light a larger fire. 3 weeks in her new position, Maya had worked with 12 different clients representing 8 species, each seeking to understand different aspects of human culture. A crystalline philosopher wanted to comprehend human concepts of individual identity versus collective consciousness. A mechanical historian studied human approaches to preserving knowledge across generations. A psychic researcher investigated how humans processed emotional trauma without telepathic support networks. Each consultation had taught Maya something new about both her own culture and the remarkable diversity of intelligence in the galaxy. But it was during a quiet evening in her quarters that she received the most significant communication of her new life. The message arrived through official diplomatic channels, bearing encryption protocols that Unit Thane explained were reserved for interspecies governmental communications of the highest priority. Maya stared at the formal symbols scrolling across her display, trying to process what she was reading. Her Royal Majesty Queen Veltera of the Harmonic Reaches requests the honor of cultural consultation with a human specialist Maya Chun regarding traditional seasonal observances and their musical expressions. Maya read the message 3 times before the implications began to sink in. Veltar, her first client, had not simply been a composer interested in human music. She was royalty, and apparently the consultation had been successful enough that she wanted to continue their cultural exchange at the highest levels of her society. Kasara, Maya called through the communication system. "I need to speak with you immediately." Kasara arrived within minutes, accompanied by Unit Thane and another being Maya didn't recognize. The newcomer appeared to be pure energy contained within a geometric crystalline framework, communicating through harmonic frequencies that Unit Thane translated in real time. Ambassador Resonance of Truth represents the harmonic reaches in diplomatic relations with this sector, Kasara explained. Queen Velterra's request requires official approval through proper channels. Maya looked between the assembled beings, feeling suddenly overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. "I don't understand. Why would a queen want cultural consultation? Doesn't she have access to much more qualified experts?" Ambassador Resonance of Truth is crystalline structure pulsed with complex patterns that Unit Thane translated as carefully modulated diplomatic language. Her Majesty was profoundly affected by the authentic cultural exchange she experienced during her consultation. The harmonic reaches have long sought to understand how other species create emotional connections through artistic expression, but previous efforts have relied on academic analysis rather than experiential learning. "The Queen wants to experience human culture directly," Kasara added. "Specifically, she's interested in participating in one of your seasonal celebrations. She believes that understanding how humans use music and ritual to create community connections could benefit her own people's cultural development." Maya felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. "But I've never actually organized a human celebration." I told her that during our consultation, which is precisely why she's interested, Ambassador Resonance of Truth replied through Unit Thane's translation. Her Majesty recognizes that authentic cultural experiences cannot be artificially constructed. She wishes to participate in the creation of a genuine human celebration, learning through the process of organizing and experiencing it alongside other humans. "What other humans?" Maya asked, suddenly realizing the practical implications of organizing a human cultural celebration. Kasara smiled, revealing her pointed teeth. "That is where our organization's broader mission becomes relevant. We have been quietly locating and documenting human communities throughout this sector of the galaxy. Many humans have become isolated from their cultural traditions due to economic necessity or geographic dispersion. We believe it's time to reconnect some of these scattered communities." The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Maya had assumed she was one of very few humans in this region of space, but apparently there were others who shared her sense of cultural disconnection. The possibility of meeting other humans who remembered Earth traditions was almost too wonderful to believe. "How many humans are we talking about?" she asked. "Approximately 40 individuals within reasonable travel distance of this station," Unit Thane replied. "Families who have maintained some traditional knowledge, individuals who possess authentic cultural artifacts, children who have heard stories but never experienced the practices those stories describe." Maya thought about the books in her quarters, filled with descriptions of Christmas celebrations that she had never witnessed. The idea of actually participating in gift-giving, communal meals, and musical celebrations with other humans felt like stepping into a fantasy. "What will my role be?" "Cultural coordinator," Kasara explained. "You would work with representatives from the human communities to plan and organize a celebration that honors authentic Earth traditions while being practical for current circumstances. Queen Velterra would participate as both observer and contributor, sharing her own species' approaches to communal emotional expression." Ambassador Resonance of Truth pulsed with additional information that Unit Thane translated as formal diplomatic details. Her Majesty's participation would be under official cultural exchange protocols. The harmonic reaches would provide transportation, accommodation, and material support for all participating humans. This would be recognized as a formal diplomatic and cultural event. Maya realized she was being offered an opportunity that went far beyond personal employment. This would be a chance to help create the first major human cultural celebration in this region of the galaxy, to bring together scattered communities and to demonstrate the value of human traditions to one of the galaxy's most influential civilizations. When would this happen? She asked. The Earth calendar indicates that Christmas falls in approximately 3 weeks, Cassara replied. Queen Velterra believes this timing is appropriate for several reasons. It's a celebration specifically focused on community, hope, and shared joy during a dark season. It incorporates music, food, and gift-giving in ways that translate well across cultural boundaries. And it has sufficient flexibility to accommodate different traditions and circumstances. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. I'll need help. I read about Christmas traditions, but organizing something this significant, you'll have whatever support you require, Cassara assured her. Our organization has resources and expertise at your disposal. But the essential decisions about how to structure the celebration must come from humans themselves. Authenticity requires that the community create its own traditions rather than following external instructions. The next week passed in a blur of planning and coordination. Maya found herself working with a communications specialist to contact scattered human communities throughout the sector. Each conversation revealed stories of cultural isolation and longing that resonated with her own experiences. There was Elena Vasquez, a maintenance engineer on a mining station who had been teaching her daughter Spanish lullabies from memory. David Kim, a trader who traveled between systems and carried a small collection of traditional Korean instruments. Sarah O'Brien, a medical technician who had preserved her grandmother's cookie recipes despite never having access to proper ingredients. Dozens of others who had maintained fragments of Earth culture like precious treasures. As word spread through human networks, more people expressed interest in participating. Some could travel to Station Kepler, 442b, for the celebration. Others could only contribute remotely by sharing recipes, songs, or stories. But all of them shared Maya's excitement at the possibility of experiencing genuine human community. Queen Velterra arrived 5 days before the planned celebration, accompanied by a small entourage of cultural specialists and diplomatic staff. Maya had expected royalty to be intimidating or demanding, but the Queen's first request was simply to observe the preparation process without interfering. I want to understand how humans create community through shared effort, she explained during their initial meeting. My species tends to approach communal activities through harmonic consensus, where emotional states align naturally. But humans appear to create unity through coordinated individual actions, which is fascinating to me. Maya watched Velterra's colors shift as humans arrived and began transforming the cultural consultation spaces into celebration areas. Elena Vasquez brought decorative materials she had crafted during the journey, transforming generic station corridors into spaces that felt warm and welcoming. David Kim's instruments provided background music that helped coordinate work rhythms while creating an atmosphere of shared purpose. Sarah O'Brien organized food preparation that filled the area with scents that made every human present pause with sudden, powerful nostalgia. We're creating something that doesn't exist yet, Maya realized as she watched the transformation. None of us has experienced Christmas like this before, but we're building it together based on our shared understanding of what it should be. Queen Velterra's surface shimmered with patterns Maya was learning to recognize as deep interest. Yes, you are creating new traditions by combining remembered fragments with current circumstances. This is remarkable adaptive behavior. The celebration itself exceeded Maya's most optimistic expectations. 43 humans gathered in spaces that had been transformed into something that felt like home despite being thousands of light years from Earth. Children who had never seen snow played games that their parents taught them from half-remembered childhood experiences. Adults who had been isolated for years found themselves laughing and singing with people who understood references that would have been meaningless to other species. Maya stood before the assembled group as evening approached, holding her wooden box of matches. The formal program was about to begin with the lighting of candles that would represent the hope and continuity of human culture. But as she looked out at faces illuminated by warm light, she felt overwhelmed by the significance of the moment. "I grew up thinking I was alone," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet room. "I thought being human meant being disconnected from my culture, living on scraps of stories and memories of places I'd never seen. But tonight I understand that culture isn't about perfect preservation of old traditions. It's about creating new ones that carry forward the essential things that make us who we are." She struck a match, and the small flame caught the attention of every person in the room. This light represents all the lights that came before it, all the way back to the first fires our ancestors kindled on Earth. But it's also a new light, burning in a place those ancestors never imagined, shared with beings they never could have conceived of. Maya used the match to light candles that other participants carried throughout the room, each flame kindling others until the entire space glowed with warm, flickering light. Queen Velterra's surface reflected the candlelight in patterns of gold and amber, her colors expressing something that transcended species boundaries. The gift exchange that followed revealed the creativity and resourcefulness of humans scattered across the galaxy. Handmade items crafted during long journeys between systems. Digital collections of Earth music painstakingly assembled from fragments found in various archives. Food prepared according to recipes adapted for available ingredients. Each gift represented not just the item itself, but the effort to maintain connections across time and space. But it was the musical portion of the celebration that truly captured Queen Velterra's attention. Humans with different cultural backgrounds shared songs from their traditions, creating impromptu harmonies that blended melodies from different Earth regions into something entirely new. Children learned words to songs they had never heard before, while adults rediscovered verses they had thought forgotten. Maya found herself humming the melody from her music box while Elena's daughter played it on one of David's instruments. Other voices joined in, creating harmony where there had been only simple melody. The song became a bridge between Maya's memories of her mother and the new family she was discovering among these scattered humans. "This is what I was trying to understand," Queen Velterra said quietly to Maya during a pause in the music. "How individual experiences combine to create collective meaning. Each person brings their own memories and associations to the shared song, but together you create something larger than the sum of its parts." Maya nodded, still humming softly. "We call a harmony. Not just the musical kind, but the way different people can work together while staying themselves." As the celebration continued into the night, Maya noticed that Queen Velterra had begun to participate rather than simply observe. Her colorful surface provided a kind of visual music that complemented the human songs, creating patterns that seemed to express emotions that words couldn't capture. When invited, she shared a harmonic reaches tradition of communal emotional exchange that translated surprisingly well into human terms. The evening concluded with everyone gathered in a circle, sharing reflections on what the celebration had meant to them. Stories emerged of childhood Christmases half remembered and recreated, of families separated by vast distances finding new connections, of traditions adapted to circumstances their creators never could have imagined. "Tonight I learned that being human isn't about where you come from," said David Kim, speaking for many others. "It's about how you choose to connect with other people, how you create meaning out of shared experiences, how you maintain hope even when everything familiar seems lost." Queen Velterra's response surprised everyone. Instead of offering formal diplomatic observations, she spoke in personal terms that suggested the evening had affected her as deeply as it had the human participants. "My species has always created unity through harmonic resonance, where individual consciousness merges temporarily with collective experience," she said. "But humans create unity while maintaining individual identity, which allows for much greater diversity within community. This is a form of emotional technology that could benefit many species. As the celebration ended, and participants began preparing to return to their various homes throughout the sector, Maya felt a profound sense of completion. She had spent 3 years selling matches in the slums, trying to survive on memories of a culture she had never fully experienced. Tonight, she had helped create new memories that honored the past while pointing toward a future where human culture could flourish in the galaxy. Queen Velterra approached her as the last participants were departing. Maya-chun, you have given me and my people a great gift. The understanding we have gained from this experience will influence how we approach cultural development for generations. I would like to offer you something in return. Maya felt sudden nervousness. Royal gifts often came with obligations that transformed recipients' lives in ways they hadn't anticipated. Your Majesty, participating in tonight's celebration was reward enough for me. Nevertheless, the Queen replied with color patterns that suggested gentle insistence. I believe there is something you desire that I might be able to provide. Maya thought about the books in her quarters, the stories of Earth that she had never expected to experience directly. She thought about the humans who had gathered tonight, scattered across the galaxy, but united by shared traditions and hopes. Actually, she said slowly, there is something, but it's not for me. It's for all of us. 6 months after the Christmas celebration that had brought together scattered humans from across the sector, Maya stood in the observation deck of the HSS Cultural Bridge, watching Earth grow larger through the transparent aluminum viewports. The planet appeared as a blue and white sphere that matched descriptions from every story she had ever heard. But seeing it with her own eyes created an emotional impact that no amount of preparation had anticipated. Queen Velterra's gift had exceeded Maya's most ambitious dreams. The Harmonic Reaches had formally established the Human Cultural Preservation Initiative, a diplomatic program designed to reconnect scattered human communities with their ancestral traditions. The centerpiece of this initiative was an expedition to Earth itself, led by the humans who had participated in the Christmas celebration and supported by resources that made comprehensive cultural documentation possible. First time seeing Earth? Asked Elena Vasquez, joining Maya at the viewport. Elena had been appointed as the expedition's coordinator, her engineering background proving invaluable for organizing the complex logistics of interstellar cultural research. First time seeing any planet, Maya replied honestly. I've lived my entire life on space stations and transport ships. I never imagined anything could be so big. Elena smiled, understanding the vertigo that came with encountering planetary scales after a lifetime in enclosed artificial environments. Wait until you experience weather. Rain that isn't recycled condensation, wind that isn't generated by atmospheric processors, sunlight that actually travels through space instead of being produced by fusion reactors. The ship carrying 47 humans and a small diplomatic team for the Harmonic Reaches had been traveling for 3 months, covering distances that would have been impossible without the advanced propulsion technology provided by Queen Velterra's government. But the journey had been far from wasted time. The participants had used the months to study Earth's history, prepare research protocols, and, most importantly, to deepen the cultural connections that had begun during the Christmas celebration. Maya had assumed her role would be primarily observational, but she had quickly discovered that her experience with cultural consultation had prepared her for challenges that other participants faced. Her ability to explain human traditions to non-human beings translated well into helping humans understand their own culture from new perspectives. The anthropological team thinks we might be able to locate some of the settlements that were abandoned during the Exodus, David Kim said, joining their group at the viewport. Imagine finding actual artifacts from the families that stayed behind, preserved after 50 years. The human exodus from Earth had been a gradual process rather than a single dramatic event. Economic pressures, environmental challenges, and opportunities in space-based industries had drawn humans away from their homeworld over several decades. By the time the last major settlements were abandoned, Earth's human population had dwindled to a few thousand individuals committed to maintaining the planet's ecosystems and preserving its cultural sites. Current intelligence suggested that several hundred humans still lived on Earth, descendants of those who had chosen to remain as planetary guardians rather than joining the galactic diaspora. Making contact with these Earth humans was one of the expedition's primary objectives, but it also presented the greatest uncertainties. 50 years of separation had created cultural divergence that might make communication difficult despite shared species origin. Maya, you should review the contact protocols one more time, Elena suggested. If we do locate the remaining Earth communities, you'll be our primary cultural interpreter. Maya nodded, though the responsibility felt overwhelming. The skills she had developed working with non-human clients would be tested in reverse, helping humans who had maintained Earth traditions communicate with humans who had adapted to galactic civilization. The potential for misunderstanding or cultural conflict was significant. The ship's communications system activated with the distinctive harmonic tones that indicated messages from Queen Velterra's government. Maya had learned to recognize the different frequency patterns that conveyed various types of official information. Attention all expedition members, came the translated voice of Ambassador Resonance of Truth. We have received responses to our diplomatic overtures to Earth's guardian communities. 3 settlements have agreed to meet with our expedition under formal cultural exchange protocols. Maya felt excitement mixed with nervousness. Contact with Earth's remaining human populations would provide unprecedented opportunities for cultural learning, but it would also reveal how much divergence had occurred between Earth humans and their galactic diaspora cousins. The first meeting will be with the Great Lakes Confederation, a community of approximately 200 individuals who have maintained traditional North American customs while developing sustainable planetary management practices. The announcement continued. Initial contact suggests they have preserved extensive cultural materials and are interested in learning about how human traditions have evolved in galactic contexts. Maya thought about the books in her quarters back on Station Kepler 442b, filled with descriptions of Earth locations that she was about to see for the first time. The Great Lakes region had been described as vast freshwater seas surrounded by forests that change color with the seasons. The idea of experiencing natural seasonal change instead of artificially regulated atmospheric cycles seemed almost magical. As the ship entered Earth's orbital approach, Maya joined the other expedition members in the main gathering area for final preparation briefings. The room buzzed with excitement as people checked research equipment, reviewed cultural protocols, and shared personal hopes for what they might discover on humanity's homeworld. Remember that we are guests here, Elena emphasized during her final address to the group. The Earth communities have maintained their stewardship responsibilities for 5 decades, while the rest of humanity scattered across the galaxy. We must approach them with respect for their expertise and gratitude for their preservation efforts. Queen Velterra's representative, a harmonic reaches cultural specialist named Resonance of Understanding, added her own perspective through harmonic translation. This expedition represents the first major cultural reconnection between separated human populations since the original diaspora. The information gathered here will inform how other species approach similar challenges of cultural preservation across galactic distances. Maya realized that the expedition's significance extended far beyond human concerns. Other species watched to see whether cultural unity could be maintained across interstellar distances, or whether galactic civilization inevitably led to the fragmentation of traditional identities. The success or failure of human cultural reconnection would influence how the galaxy approached similar challenges for centuries to come. The landing itself proved to be an experience that no amount of preparation could have anticipated. Maya had lived her entire life under artificial gravity generated by rotating sections or gravitational manipulation fields. Earth's gravity felt simultaneously more solid and more alive, pulling her toward a planet that seemed to pulse with its own rhythms. But it was the air that truly overwhelmed her senses. Station air was carefully filtered and recycled, designed to support multiple species with minimal waste. Earth air moved constantly, carrying scents and humidity levels that change from moment to moment. Maya found herself taking deeper breaths than necessary, trying to process sensory information that her nervous system recognized as fundamentally natural despite her having no previous experience with it. The Great Lakes Confederation had sent representatives to meet the expedition at a landing site near what their historical records indicated had been the city of Chicago. Maya expected to find ruins or archaeological sites, but instead discovered a thriving community that had transformed the urban infrastructure into something that blended seamlessly with natural ecosystems. "Welcome to Earth," said the lead representative, a woman named Sarah Tree Walker, whose appearance immediately indicated the cultural evolution that had occurred among Earth's remaining humans. Her clothing was woven from plant fibers that Maya didn't recognize, decorated with symbols that seemed to combine traditional human artistic patterns with design elements that suggested deep integration with planetary ecology. "We are honored by your visit," Sarah continued, addressing the entire expedition group. "It has been many years since Earth received visitors from the human diaspora. We have much to share and much to learn about how our scattered people have adapted to life among the stars." Maya noticed that Sarah's speech patterns carried subtle differences from standard galactic English, pronunciations that seemed older, more connected to Earth's linguistic roots, vocabulary that included terms Maya didn't recognize, suggesting that Earth-human language had evolved in directions influenced by their unique environmental circumstances. The first formal cultural exchange session took place in a meeting hall that perfectly exemplified the Earth community's approach to blending human traditions with planetary stewardship. The building structure used architectural principles that Maya recognized from historical records, but the materials were clearly local, wood that had been grown and shaped rather than harvested, and processed stone that seemed to have been coaxed into position rather than carved and fitted. "We understand you've maintained some of the old celebrations," Sarah said, addressing the expedition members who had participated in the Christmas gatherings 6 months earlier. "We will be honored to share our own seasonal observances with you and to learn how these traditions have evolved in galactic environments." What followed was perhaps the most profound cultural exchange Maya had ever experienced. The Earth communities had indeed preserved traditional human celebrations, but 50 years of adaptation to planetary rhythms had created variations that were simultaneously familiar and utterly new. Their version of Christmas incorporated elements that no spacebound human community could have developed. Gift exchanges included living plants that would grow and change over time, representing hopes that extended beyond immediate gratification. Musical traditions had evolved to include sounds from Earth's recovering ecosystems, bird songs, wind patterns, water movements that had been integrated into human compositions. But it was their approach to community that most impressed the galactic humans. The Earth settlements had developed social structures that balanced individual autonomy with collective responsibility in ways that seemed effortless, but must have required decades of careful cultural evolution. We learned that maintaining human culture on Earth required adapting to Earth's rhythms rather than imposing human schedules on planetary systems, explained David Rootsinger, the Great Lakes Confederation's cultural historian. "Our celebrations follow natural cycles that your space-based communities can't access, but the essential human elements remain unchanged." Maya found herself serving as interpreter between the Earth humans and her galactic companions, helping both groups understand how their shared heritage had diverged and evolved. The Earth communities had developed profound connections to their environment that space-based humans could barely comprehend. But the galactic diaspora had learned to create cultural unity across vast distances and diverse circumstances in ways that amazed their planetary cousins. "You've become something we never imagined," Sarah Tree Walker told Maya during a private conversation. "Humans who can share their culture with non-human beings, who can maintain identity while adapting to circumstances our ancestors never conceived of. You've proven that being human is about much more than living on Earth." Maya felt the weight of that observation as she stood once again at the lakeshore, watching natural waves move across water that stretched to the horizon. The lake represented everything she had never experienced. Vast natural spaces, water that moved according to planetary forces, life that existed without technological intervention. But she also understood that her own experiences had value that Earth humans couldn't duplicate. She had learned to explain human culture to beings whose consciousness operated on completely different principles. She had helped create community among humans who shared no common environment except their species' heritage. She had demonstrated that human culture could flourish in contexts that Earth humans had never imagined. Queen Velterra arrived on Christmas Eve, 3 days before the expedition's planned departure. She came not in an official diplomatic vessel, but in a small personal craft that allowed her to experience Earth's approach in the same way the human expedition members had. Maya met her at the landing site, curious about how the Queen would respond to her first experience of a planetary environment. The gravity has emotional resonance, were Velterra's first words upon stepping onto Earth's surface. Her chromatic patterns shifted rapidly as she processed sensory input from the planet's natural electromagnetic fields. I understand now why your species developed such strong connections to place and memory. This world sings with harmonic frequencies that embed themselves in consciousness. They walked together toward the settlement where the combined Earth-human and galactic human communities were preparing for a Christmas celebration that would blend traditions from both groups. Maya carried her wooden box of matches, now worn smooth from months of use during the expedition's cultural activities. "This has exceeded every expectation," Queen Velterra said as they walked. "The information gathered here will revolutionize how the harmonic reaches approaches cultural preservation and intercommunity connection. But more importantly, you have demonstrated something that will benefit every species in the galaxy." "What's that?" Maya asked. "That authentic culture can adapt to new circumstances without losing its essential character," the Queen replied. "That community can be maintained across vast distances and different environments. That identity is about shared values and practices, not shared locations." As they reached the settlement, Maya could hear music beginning inside the meeting hall. Voices from Earth and voices from the galactic diaspora were learning to harmonize, creating something that honored both their shared past and their divergent experiences. Maya struck a match in the gathering darkness, using it to light a candle that would join dozens of others in the celebration. The small flame seemed especially bright against the natural darkness of planetary night, but it also seemed connected to something larger than itself. "This light represents all the lights that came before it," she said, echoing the words she had spoken 6 months earlier at the first Christmas celebration. "But tonight, it also represents all the lights that will come after it, carried by humans who remember where they came from and aren't afraid of where they're going." Queen Velterra's surface shimmered with patterns that Maya had learned to recognize as the deepest form of appreciation her species could express. Maya Chun, the little girl who sold matches in the alien slums, has become someone who lights the way for entire civilizations. As they entered the meeting hall, where humans from across the galaxy and Queen Velterra's diplomatic team were gathering to celebrate Christmas on Earth, Maya understood that her journey had come full circle while opening countless new paths. She had begun by trying to survive with the last remnants of her cultural heritage. She was ending by helping to ensure that human culture would continue to evolve and flourish throughout the galaxy for generations to come. The matches in her wooden box had become more than simple tools for creating light. They had become symbols of human adaptability, creativity, and hope. Each flame represented not just illumination for immediate needs, but the potential to kindle larger fires that could warm entire communities and light the way toward futures that no one had yet imagined. And in the warm glow of candlelight that filled the meeting hall on Christmas Eve, surrounded by humans who had traveled across the galaxy to rediscover their shared heritage and aliens who had come to understand what it meant to be part of something larger than themselves. Maya finally understood what home really meant. Home wasn't a place you came from. Home was the community you helped create, the traditions you chose to honor, and the light you shared with others in the darkness. Home was wherever humans gathered to remember their past and dream about their future, whether that was in the slums of a distant space station or beside the ancient waters of Earth. Maya smiled as the Christmas celebration began, her wooden box of matches resting safely beside her, ready to create whatever light the future might require.